Good afternoon, Charlene.
Good afternoon.
Thanks so much for sitting down in our second edition of Parent University to talk about early childhood education, right?
Yes.
Not only focusing on the work that's done at Croswell, but also things that can be done in preparation for students who now are going to transition from preschool, GSRP, ECSE into our kindergarten and young fives classrooms, right? I know it's only January. It's maybe hard to think about the fact that, we're already starting to plan for our youngest learners coming into the district, but it's just that time. And so really what I hoped we could do today is help viewers better understand the benefits of early childhood programming, kind of talk through some of the awesome things we have going on here in Romeo from an early childhood perspective. And then since we do still have time between the end of January and the fall, some of the skills that students who are exiting preschool, ECSE, GSRP, may want to work with moms and dads to pick up upon as we move through the spring and summer months, just so they can be ready for kindergarten. You and I both know that kindergarten and young fives is much different than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and obviously when we were kindergartners. Right. And so, but moms and dads who maybe this is their first child coming into school may have a different perspective of what kindergarten looks like. And so the transparency of this video coupled with, again, some readiness skills that could easily be worked on at home before we get to September, I think will position everybody to be successful.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to you, and I'll allow you again to tell us about the benefits of early childhood and, again, what we have going on here in Romeo.
So like you said, kindergarten, young fives has changed a lot in the last 10 years. Well, so has early childhood, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's had to grow along with the education journey for all of our children, right? So when you look at early childhood, there's huge amounts of research that has been done on the effects of good quality early childhood programming to prepare children for kindergarten and their educational journey.
What's the why to that? Like, what does the research tell us about early childhood programming?
So early childhood programming for many years was just childcare, right? Sure. It was just someone take care of my kids while I go to work, right? You know? But now it's really a part of their educational journey. It starts at 3 and 4, and sometimes even 2. But in relation to kindergarten, we really start focusing on like 3.5, 4-year-olds, preparing them for kindergarten.
And what does that preparation look like? I would assume it's maybe both social, emotional, and academic?
Yes.
Okay.
So a lot of times parents like to focus on the academic, right? I always like to tell stories, like I have parents come in and say, well, they can recite their ABCs and count up to 40. That's great. But I always come back to those parents and say, can your child share?
Sure.
Can they stand in line?
Right.
Can they regulate their feelings when they're feeling frustrated or angry or upset, you know? So academic is important when it comes to that pre-K age group. But really, the huge piece for that age group is those social emotional skills. Yeah, learning how to work with people.
Yeah, it's basically creating a readiness for the rest of their life, right? We don't find too many people that are working in isolation, right? And so the art of compromise, the art of taking direction, all those type of things start as early as 3 and 4 years old. That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, really in age 3, when they're here in the early childhood programs, we're working on those problem solving skills. You know, when they get in a fight over a toy, like we have a whole list of things we do to help the children solve the problem themselves, right? Instead of us stepping in, which a lot of times as parents, we like to just step in.
And end it.
Solve the problem and end it.
But at that point, I mean, you could probably argue that the problem hasn't been solved, right? Unless the can's been kicked down the road because we haven't worked through some of those strategies that it sounds like your teachers are equipped with and using with kids every single day.
And really the education of early childhood teachers, a lot of it is that social, emotional, and learning those skills. Because without those skills, they can't go to kindergarten and learn their ABCs and learn to read and 1, 2, 3s. Like they really have to have the ability to function with groups of people.
What's interesting about, the social emotional bend to your response is in young fives especially, that's almost like an extension of early childhood in the sense of, students in young fives are typically there because they don't have the social emotional readiness to deal with the rigors of kindergarten, right? So it's almost like we're giving them a growth year just so they can be prepared. And so it's nice for us to be able to work together on that. Talk to me specifically about what is special about early childhood education in Romeo, and specifically within the district. We know that there's preschools all over our community, but of course this is our opportunity to brag a little bit about why we think we're the best.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge fan of early childhood programs that are a part of school districts.
Okay.
You have the huge benefit, number one, of early childhood educators working with those kindergarten and young teachers to collaborate, and to bring those kids up to speed where they need to be. Where when you're looking at private centers, I never like to bash private centers because they're doing their job too, right?
And it has their place.
They have their place. But whenever you can have your child starting in a school district at 3 or 4, especially if that's going to be where they are,
the school district,
their career, their school career, you're really giving them a foot up, right?
Yeah.
Because you're really engaging them in education starting at 3 or 4. That prepares them for the rest of their journey because we are communicating, right? We do know what we need.
And the word for me that comes to mind along with communication is collaboration, right? We're all holding the rope and pulling in the same direction for the benefit of students. And so, I agree. Having a child within the system does have benefits.
It's huge. Yeah, it really is.
What else?
Oh, well, we have this beautiful building. Just built and updated. It was one of the big draws for me. I just came here last summer and it blew me away. It was beautiful. And I mean, what better place to bring your children than a place that's state of the art and has security that we all so long for and everything we can offer.
Clearly, safety and security is huge, right? Safe and secure entrances, thumb trim locks on doors. From an educational perspective, again, whether that's academic and or social emotional, how did the improvements that have been made to Croswell benefit those aspects?
Sure. So you think of the social emotional and things like we want children to be and learn to be independent, right? So these classrooms were designed specifically for these children.
Oh, I'm interested.
Right?
Tell me how.
So even you think of a bathroom, right? You really don't think it's that big of a deal.
Sure.
But when you have a bathroom that's made for little people, it allows them to develop that independence, right? And practice those skills and do it without the help of an adult, right? Even in classrooms, we have sinks that are down to their level. They can learn those skills independently without an adult being there, right?
So there aren't as many barriers as there could be to to lifelong skill development, right? Okay, cool.
Yes, and then our teachers too. I mean, Romeo early childhood teachers are phenomenal. We're talking about teachers that have had years of experience. They also have incredible education behind them, backing them as well.
I would imagine a high level of patience as well.
Yes.
Interacting with 3 or 4-year-olds every day as a father of 3, and it's been a little bit since I've had a 3 or 4-year-old in the house. But I remember the days.
Imagine a room of 20 of them.
Yeah, 100%. I get it. I get it. Okay. Anything else related to what maybe makes Romeo special?
I even think as far as the leadership, Miss Beck, I mean, not to, to my own horn, but I want to talk about Miss Beck as well. I mean, we're here to support families and our educators and really be a part. We really kind of engross ourselves into the classrooms.
Okay.
We're not just sitting in our office.
Sure.
You know, like
Sure.
we're a part of it, and we're helping the teachers be the best they can be for these kids.
Besides professional development, which is obvious, like what ways are you and Ms. Beck supporting teachers?
Sure. So we, as you can imagine, with 3 and 4-year-olds, there are some behaviors sometimes that we have.
Breaks are needed at times.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
So a lot of that, yes, is just helping our teachers. Supporting them in those roles, right?
Yeah.
When they have a child that isn't socially, emotionally where they need to be, right? It's our job to kind of step in. A lot of times we do observations in classrooms,
Sure.
documentation, and we're able to sit down and
Prior to a meeting, right? So you have some data that can be discussed and work as a team to try
and a lot
to
of
figure out some
times,
support.
yeah, a lot of times a person coming in and observing can see things that maybe a teacher doesn't see when they're
Second set of eyes,
right?
absolutely, right? It's hard to be able to process all of that when there's so much coming at you, 100%.
Right. And secondly, Ms. Beck and myself, we're really focused on the families of Romeo and what their needs are, right? For each individual family.
Sure,
what
they're
their
different.
Needs are
We know
supporting that. Yep.
Yeah.
And every family is different.
Well, we've spent the bulk of our time talking about early childhood, you know, a little bit of bragging about why we think our in-house programming is great. Let's kind of shift gears to what needs to be done to be ready for the fall, making that transition from kindergarten and young fives. You know, as you're aware, on Tuesday, February 25th, we have our kindergarten information nights. Information night is at every school, at all of our elementary schools, excuse me, and parents should attend the information night at the school that they believe their child will attend the following year. Families interested in schools of choice are able to attend at any. Doesn't necessarily mean that will be the school that their child will end up at, but the information that's going to be disseminated is the same. And we have an early childhood open house as well, right?
February 4th at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. to 7:30. Everyone's welcome. We will have teachers in the classrooms. Ms. Beck and myself will be here to answer questions. We really just want everyone in the community even to come see this building, right?
Sure.
Check it out and know what it's about, right?
Absolutely. And then we have our enrollment period, right?
Yes.
So for young 5s through 12th grade, our open enrollment starts on February 26th. Is there a different date for early childhood?
There is. So I'm actually going to look here. So for current families, they have the luxury, current families in the early childhood program, of registering before it opens to the rest of the community.
Okay.
Their registration will start in February.
Okay.
For new families coming in, we're looking at April. February, for half days, February 25th, and for full days, April 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if I'm understanding you correctly, if our community was in and registered before kind of the at-large people, there just wouldn't be space, right?
Right.
Okay, so we do give priority to Romeo people.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I got it. Okay, so I'm a parent. I know that my child is either going into young 5s or kindergarten next year. I've completed the enrollment process. Shameless plug for the enrollment department as well. Moms and dads watching, don't wait till the last minute to get that done.
Don't ever wait.
It becomes very harried in August, less harried in the springtime. So take advantage of that early window. But I've gone through all of that. I've gone to the administration building, finalized my enrollment. Now I've got this gap, right? Let's say from March or April into September. What are some things as an expert, right, in the field that parents should be working on with 4 and 5-year-olds who are entering into our young 5s and kindergarten programming?
So I kind of break it down into 3 separate areas, right?
Okay.
That's academic skills.
Sure.
The social emotional skills and even physical skills. So there are 3 areas that these kids need to be working on daily.
All right, well, let's pick away at the academic piece, just in order of alphabet. Like, what are some practical things that can be done at home, not having to buy any extravagant programs or anything like that, just through engaging in everyday being?
Very basic things. Like, we want to work on a child being able to write their name.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Just a great basic skill. Paper and pencil.
Sure.
That's great. That's all you need,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
And able to recognize their name. So I know a lot of kids these days, you know, on their backpacks and everything's labeled, right?
Sure.
And just children working on them being able to recognize their full name.
Okay, so you're talking first and last?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Counting and recognition of numbers up to 10. Really, if they can get up to 10 by 4 years old, that's great.
Sure.
And recognize those numbers. A lot of kids can just count, you know, especially if it's put in a song or something.
Yeah, right. They've seen programming on TV or, you know, on an iPad or something like that, that they understand the cadence of what that looks like. And then as they move through young 5s through 5th or K through 5th, that's where the context behind all of that comes.
The context behind it. And simple things parents can do to help children with that is have your kids count things in the house, right?
Sure.
Like, we need 2 eggs to make a cake.
Right.
Count 2 eggs out for me. You know, just simple things we maybe don't typically think about.
How many forks are on the table? How many spoons? How many people are in our family? If you're trying to help set the table, so you know what you need.
Just simple everyday things. You know, like how many socks make a pair? How many socks do we need to fit your feet? You know, it's things we do without thinking about it, but they're really opportunities for kids to have those recognition of numbers and basic mathematics skills, right?
Okay.
And then I would say for academics, just a basic, being able to identify basic colors. You know, we don't need them to be able to recognize fuchsia and turquoise and indigo, and but we do want them to be
red, white, black, brown,
their
blue.
Basic colors.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if a student was not able to be proficient in this window with some of the things we're discussing, is that a reason to be alarmed?
No.
I wouldn't think so either, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I like to tell parents, my youngest daughter just refused to write her name. She just refused at age 4. She wanted nothing to do with it. And you know what? She's a college graduate now.
She made it.
She made it. She was fine. So yes, it's nothing to concern yourself over.
Sure.
Just things you can practice on.
Yeah,
if they have the skill, it's just going to help them.
Yeah.
You know,
and eventually, if they don't have the skill again between March and September, it'll come.
It's going to come. It's all going to come. Yeah.
How about, you know, I've always known, like, reading at home, you know, students or children listening to their parents. That seems to have, there seems to be a lot of research out there that supports the benefit of that. Are you aware of all that?
That's huge.
Okay.
I always say read.
Right.
Every day, whenever you can, right? And I mean, make it a part of your routine, right? At the end of the day, when they've had a bath, sit down and read a book with them before they go to bed. Just simple ways of making that a part of your everyday routine.
Is it realistic for a parent to, obviously, you know, a children's book that's content appropriate, but is it reasonable for a parent to, let's say, read a couple pages from a children's book and then maybe ask their child, like, what just happened?
Yes. Okay. Yes, that's a huge piece of being ready for kindergarten as well, right? Is when you read, can the child retell a story to you, right? And a good thing to do with that is read the same book. I know parents get sick of reading the same book over and over. Yeah. But that helps children with their memory. And like, if they can retell that story, they're grasping it and understanding it.
And in my experience in reading to my children when they were young, sometimes that's the only book you're going to be able to read, right? And that's the go-to. And for me, it wasn't just books. Like, I must have watched The Polar Express with my oldest 50 times, and often during the summer, because there was no way you were getting around watching The Polar Express.
But they could retell that.
They knew it inside and out.
They knew it inside inside and out.
Absolutely. And then, fine motor, gross motor, is that important, first of all? And then what are maybe some opportunities that exist to be able to help children, again, continue to accumulate those skills?
Right. So the physical skills needed. Really, physical skills, we need them to be independent, right?
Sure.
I always like to relate, at home, you maybe have 3 little kids. A kindergarten or a young 5 teacher is going to have 20 to 24 kids.
More. Yeah, right.
So if she or he has 24 kids that can't put their coat on and zip their coat up and get
snow
their boots
pants,
on and
hats,
snow pants,
yeah.
That's pretty much all that teacher's going to be doing all day.
Right.
Right?
Or it's going to lag at those times in which they have to get ready, like for lunch or for an extra recess. And then, from an instructional perspective, that cuts into teaching and learning time.
Yes.
Okay.
So those fine motor and gross motor skills are huge. Right. They need to be able to do things independently.
Yeah. So while it might seem odd to have your child put on their hats and gloves and snow pants and coat and boots in the summertime, it's well worth the practice, right?
It's education.
Yeah, sure.
I know we may not look at it like that as parents, but it's really education.
And I know that practicing writing the name is something that is going to support fine motor development. What other moves can parents do at home to continue to support that fine motor?
The fine motor, I mean, things just like some parents hate it when I say this, Play-Doh.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. But it builds those muscles in their hands so they're able to hold pens and pencils properly. And like, you really want to think of things, Legos, building blocks, right?
Oh, sure.
Like, they're able
some of those intricate pieces.
Intricate pieces. I actually keep Legos here in my office, and kids will come in, and it is challenging for them at 3 or 4 to put those small pieces together. But that's really like, they're learning.
It's a situation which precision matters, right? So they really need to focus and be careful. Cutting with scissors?
Yes.
Okay, same type of thing, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And it's really about just taking the time at home, right? To do those things. Obviously, we can't leave a 3 or 4-year-old by themselves with scissors, but if you can just sit down on the weekend and have some paper and scissors and say, hey, let's cut some things up.
Yeah, and maybe start with just, when you talk about paper, just cutting the paper, right? The process, and then maybe work towards some of the intricacies of cutting out this box or something like that as your child shows the proficiency and maybe being able to try that. Okay. We've kind of lumped in physical and academics. We have social emotional still out there. So again, talk to me about the work that can be done leading into the fall around preparing a child socially and emotionally for the rigors of young 5s in kindergarten.
So families play a huge role in social emotional development, right? It's all about children learning how to manage their feelings, right, and their emotions, right? So we talked earlier about learning to problem solve, learning to work through a problem when they're angry or upset and not act out inappropriately. Right? They have those big feelings in these little tiny bodies.
And it's okay to have the big feelings.
It's okay to have
we all have big feelings at times, right? It's just
learning how to manage those, right? And not have outbursts per se, right? We really need our children to learn, it's okay that I'm angry or upset, but what do I need to do to handle that without throwing things or, hitting, kicking, biting, all of that.
And you mentioned earlier, and it's the same at young 5s in kindergarten, children need to be able to listen. Right? They need to be able to take direction, especially when you think of the teacher to student ratio being at 1 to 20 or 1 to 25, to be an active participant within the team that's in the classroom. Right?
And you can do that at home, right? There's ways. I know I started young with my kids when they were 3 or 4. Okay, you have to clean your playroom.
Right.
We're a family, and we all have jobs.
We're contributing.
Yeah, we all have to contribute contribute in this house, and here are your jobs.
Sure.
And that's a huge way for kids to learn, and it'll translate to kindergarten, young fives. They'll say, oh, this is an adult that I have to listen to.
Sure.
I need to follow their directions, and they know that.
Yeah, they do. They do. All right. Anything else that we're missing relating to, again, readiness?
Oh, let me think here. I think one thing that's really important too for this age group going into kindergarten is being able to have one-on-one conversation.
Okay.
That's an important thing for this age group.
What do you mean by one-on-one conversation?
A 4-year-old should be able to sit down with a trusted adult and have a back and forth conversation, right? Or with their peer. So as a parent, if you're watching your child interact with their sibling or peers, make sure that they're doing that. They're speaking and then allowing someone else to speak, and there's that back and forth. That's a huge way to facilitate and help kindergarten as well. If they go into kindergarten knowing, I know how to have that one-on-one back and forth interaction.
As a way to collaborate and have a dialogue, but also, even at a young age, as a way to advocate for yourself, right? One thing that came to my mind is if you go out to dinner, right? While your 4 or 5-year-old may not be able to read what's on the menu, once he or she has decided what they want for dinner, allowing them to articulate to the waiter or waitress, what their meal of choice is going to be.
And that's an easy way to do it, right? Every time you go out, let your kid order. Let them figure it out, help them if they need help. But,
yeah, of course.
But most kids know what they want at McDonald's, or they know what they want at Culver's, right?
It's typically the same thing, probably nuggets and fries, Happy Meal, whatever, some custard from Carter's.
Yeah,
or
grow those skills.
Culver's.
Let them talk and share those things.
Sure.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else?
I think we covered
a lot.
In a short amount of time. But I mean, if you work on all of these things, your child is going to be prepared in the fall and going to be ready. Yeah.
Well, I'll close by saying, and you articulated this earlier, that this is your first year here. We're ecstatic to have you on our team, working with us, not only with adults, but also with kids, and are looking forward to seeing Croswell continue to flourish, right, with our new digs and access to things that maybe kids haven't had in the past, not just the building itself, the playground, all those other type of things. And we can't wait to see what the fall brings.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Charlene. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.